Okay. I mean, I already started
Oh,
recording. I can give
dang
you a
it.
couple of minutes.
I did too.
It's okay.
Okay.
Are we gonna have 2 recordings?
Yes.
Might as well.
It's never too much to be double safe. Double protection is never harm.
Whoa.
It cannot be broken using
Is
two,
that Keurig? What is that coffee machine, Yusha? It looks complicated.
He's muted.
It's Hamilton Beach Flex Brew.
Wow. You drink a lot of coffee?
Yes,
It
actually,
does.
this is my 5th cup for the day.
He
5th cup?
does.
Is that what you said?
He
Huh?
puts like 10 extra shots of like espresso in his coffee, like a lot.
You gotta be careful. I drink a lot of coffee, but I don't really mess with espresso much.
Espresso's good. I
look
like
at
it.
that bonus.
To me,
What?
coffee doesn't help me stay awake.
Oh, look.
It barely made me be a little bit more focused, but that's about it.
Marcus is here, dude. That's cool.
Who?
Mr. Baby.
He's always there, like in the shadows.
He
you know?
is? He is?
Yes.
Ah.
Yeah.
Marcus, here's something you cannot do.
Yeah, he cannot do it anymore. He's a baby face right now.
Yeah, the shadows.
Yes,
All right,
today we're
Josh.
going to talk about determinism.
Yeah, let's do it. Sorry.
Let's begin.
Scintillating conversation. All right, I just want to make a few announcements at the top here. First of all, thanks for coming. Somebody mute that person.
Yes, I will.
So, permanently? No, I'm joking. All right. So, first of all, it's hard to believe this is the end of October. It's incredible. I mean, we started. I mean, we are holding meetings all through the summer, but I mean, as far as the fall semester goes, we're really approaching the end of it. Now we got a lot of stuff in store, of course. So again, today's topic, and we're going to explore it, is determinism. Now, this topic is related to tomorrow's philosophy and film screening. So tomorrow, again, Wednesday, from 4 p.m. to 6, maybe 6:30, we're going to have the first installment in the philosophy and film series. It's called Hereditary. Now, again, a couple things. First of all, again, we're going to get into the relationship between maybe determinism and then things that are hereditary, as though they're determining qualities. Also, this is going to be the first time in the history of the film series, which has been around since fall 2017, I want to say. So we've had a few different October installments. It's a monthly thing. And it's the first time we're doing something more Halloween focused. So this is a horror movie, if you are unfamiliar. It's a horror movie proper. And again, it's rated R. It's going to be on Canopy. So the way it's going to work is tomorrow at 4 o'clock, we're going to open up this very Teams room. And we're going to say a few things about the film series. And we're going to say a few things about, again, remind us of the topic of determinism. And then the host is going to screen the film through a shared screen. So this is how we're going to watch the film. You could be on mute, whatever the case may be. So we're going to watch the film together. And then afterwards, again, come back in and have a conversation about it. Again, with the emphasis being on how, not just how does film reflect sort of philosophical truths, maybe in a way that's more engaging or enticing than simply, the written word or conversation, but also, again, how themes in the film reflect the themes of the discussion topic. Again, determinism. Having said all of that, there are a few scenes that are very graphic. It's rated R, I believe, because of the violence. So if this isn't necessarily your cup of tea, maybe skip out on this. We'll make this disclaimer again tomorrow. Again, it's hard for me to judge because I don't find any horror films scary. This is less scary and more gory, but it's kind of like whenever I see something gory, I immediately think of like the production value. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow, somebody in makeup spent 3.5 hours. So, okay, whatever the case may be. And of course, it's a fictional movie. None of these people are real. So having said that, if this is not your cup of tea, horror film, and yet you still want to get involved in the philosophy and film series, the following Wednesday, which is November 4th, so a week from tomorrow, there is going to be a second installment. This one's a little tentative. but this is going to be a collaboration with the International Film Series. So the International Film Series, again, screens films that are international. So again, not spoken in English. But having said that, our selection is going to be Write Down, I Am an Arab. We're just waiting on when the International Film Series co-directors would like to screen it. We suggested 4 p.m. They might want to do it a little bit earlier, so we're waiting on that. But as soon as we get official word, look for it on our social media, on our, again, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We'll be advertising it. So yeah, 2 film installments back-to-back Wednesdays. And again, Write Down, I Am an Arab is more of a documentary style as opposed to a horror movie. So 2 very different kinds of genres, but both cinematic and both reinforcing, again, Philosophy Club topics. And then last but not least, 1 month from today, 1 month from today, the Dallas College Philosophy Undergraduate Conference will be taking place. It's going to be, again, a multi-hour affair, kind of an all-day affair. We're going to send out the call for submissions today, so look out for that. Again, one month from today. There'll be a lot of details as well as how to submit. It's very easy to submit. And again, we're looking for a variety of different kinds of submissions, not just your standard PowerPoint or essay, but of course, those are more than welcome. And it's open to everybody in the district, which is to say everybody at Dallas College, as well as some of our friendly neighborhood universities as well. So yeah, that's all for now. And I'll turn it over to the students. Orlando, I think this was your topic. Oh, and then also don't forget to use the chat. Exclamation point if you'd like to participate. Have I been on
Thank
mute?
you for getting the name of the movie right, Professor.
Sorry, I missed the whole 7 minutes he was speaking. Like,
Thank you for getting the name right for the International Film Series.
yes, just to make a little bit more emphasis, if you want to participate, if you want to talk, just type in the chat exclamation mark, and that way we keep in order the attendees, like the participation. So yes, since we're pushing hard on Orlando being the one speaking in the introduction, we concede the turn to you.
Okay, well, hello everybody. Today's topic's going to be determinism, and I guess when we're talking about determinism, we can't forget about free will. That's always in the mix. But basically, the topic for today, we're kind of just asking, how much of our life is our own, or rather, how much control over our life do we really have? Are any of our choices really without influence? Because the simple answer to look at these things, yes, we have will, yes, we have the ability to make decisions and to make choices, but inevitably we're placed into a world that already existed before us, and in some ways kind of led to consequences and sort of situations that we react to. So in that sense, a lot of our life is already, in a sense, predetermined. So here we'll be asking, well, is free will really true? Does it really exist? How much does it really exist? Personally, for me, I'm on the side of hard determinism, just because of the nature of things, of psychology, of, you could even say, the laws of motion. But I'm just curious to see what you guys think. So I'll let you guys go ahead. Does
Interesting.
anybody want to start us off here?
What do you mean by the laws of motion?
Yes, I mean,
Okay, you want me to go into that?
so
So,
okay, just going
so
to. I was.
well, but what I mean by the laws of motion, essentially, Isaac Newton's 3 laws of motion essentially is that in the physical reality, no force can exist without a prior force exerting, the force on it. And so in this sense, determinism kind of can be seen in the same way, where essentially any action that we perform is influenced by something else prior to that. So for example, me liking a particular cereal, maybe as a young kid, my mom said, no, you can't have that cereal. No, you don't. No, you can't. We can't afford it, or something like that. And so now I love it because I could never have it back then. And so essentially, determinism in this sense argues that every single choice and action that you have is influenced by something prior, and therefore was predetermined. And that's how the two kind of relate.
Yes, so it's pretty much suggesting that we don't really have true free will, because regardless of how real these actions are, they were actually the result of something that happened before. So you just have the idea that it's a freedom, but it was actually already determined that you were going to take that decision. So, for example, the fact that you're here in this meeting means that there is some motion that happened in the past that makes you stay here and listen to us boring you to hell for a whole hour every week. So you might try to analyze why that is the case. That is the whole purpose. But there is also not only the hard determinism. There's always like there's the other side, like a little bit more soft, that you may have some type of free dom in your decisions or your actions, and that not everything is completely set already. Because if it is already set, then we don't really have personal, like we cannot be held morally. How is the name in English again? Morally
Responsible,
responsible
accountable.
for your act. Yeah, because it was already meant to be that way. So why are you gonna be um, where you're going to be suffering some type of consequences, you couldn't really do anything about it. It was already meant to be that way. So, do you actually agree with this view? Do you think that you have no saying on what your actions are? And if so, why?
Can you guys hear me or no?
No, I cannot. Sorry.
Okay.
That's right, Joe Marcus.
As far as the whole idea is that we're not going to ever like be able to comprehend this thing that is like pure determinism, where we know exactly, you know, what will be because we know everything prior and what it is now. Because if we do reach that, you can't have that because it goes against everything that like humans are supposed to be, which is actually doing things. But whenever that comes into play, everyone kind of just goes into a stalemate and goes, well, there's either two consequences. Either everyone stops doing anything or everyone starts doing anything. You know what I'm saying? So because there's no consequences, they go, oh, this was already predetermined. So then there's like a switch. If everyone truly accepts that there are no consequences because it was already prior, then people might do things that they normally wouldn't if they don't believe that everything is already set in a path. You know, like, oh, I didn't, you know, hit that guy in a wreck today or tomorrow because, or yesterday, blah, 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 you know, whatever. But it's when you allow it to like fully like rule, you know, your emotion through things, you know, that's when it becomes a consequence. I don't think it works in that scenario. It might be there, but we're not supposed to hold it personally.
Okay, I
I'm done.
see. You're done? Wow, very to the point. Very straight. Interesting. That's a new side of Marcus I haven't seen before. Uh, okay, but that's interesting. But this whole idea also kind of plays alongside with fate. Because like if everything is already determined, like no matter how much you want to avoid it, it's gonna find its way to happening. And that's go to the whole story of Oedipus, that he was supposed to like kill his father and like marry his mother, and he tried to avoid to happening, and by avoiding it, he actually managed to do it. Um, so it is. I mean, if we really look into hard determinism, it's kind of like harder to whether say that we actually have free will because it is harder to prove that we actually have free will, because all we have is the emotion that we would like to think there is, that we're free to choose whatever we're choosing. Oh, we have Mansi as oh wait,
I think
actually it's
you
not, we have
just next
other
here.
ones. Sorry, I'm just looking
Yeah,
at the chat. Yes,
you
go ahead,
should.
just.
It's okay. Thanks. Thanks, guys. Couple of things. And Orlando, this goes back to the point you made earlier about hard determinism, and I believe that it's not everything is determined, predetermined for us, at least, because you have to keep in a major factor called free will. At any given point in life or any form of existence, you always have a choice. Now, if you force other people to say that, oh, you were bound to make that choice regardless, then you're questioning free will, hence the existence of everything, basically, because At my own will, I choose to work here. It's not determined for me. It's at my free will, I choose to drink coffee. It's not determined for me to drink coffee. And these three things can be kept in a triangle and can be put up against each other, where on one end you have determinism, on the other you have free will, and on the third end you have compatibilism. Now, that's an ideology that states that free will and determinism can coexist to the point where at any given point you have at least two choices. For example, you're going down a road and there's a crossroads. Instead of choosing one of three ways, you can choose either to go left or right. So this ideology takes into account that yes, some factors might be predetermined for you, like your genetics, but other factors that you choose to do, like hobbies and stuff like that, those are at your own free will, hence making a perfectly balanced ecosystem where the two live hand in hand.
Can I respond to him real quick? I actually have a visual here that's kind of helps me illustrate things because I always had the problem of doing that with this. So I feel like I agree to an extent, but I think there's this sort of myth here when it comes to determinism and free will. You know, free will, the way I see it, is that essentially there's no influence on the decisions that you're making. So essentially, you see here how in determinism you have previous arrows essentially affecting the direction of all these other influences and consequences. But in this one, you have none. Essentially, this is how I view free will. Free will essentially is designed as the action of humanity done out of complete and utter lack of influence by anything else. And I think that's just not true. I think ultimately, even if you're a person who, I think there's this myth of determinism to say X plus Y must equal Z. Essentially, if my dad is an alcoholic, I exist and he's my dad, then I must be an alcoholic. When in reality, it's not linear like that. It's more of all of these different factors and reinforcements of our behaviors that are essentially leading us to a specific direction. I think ultimately determinism is like this overarching thing that we just are unaware of and can't really see it. I think free will is more of a construction that we have made to kind of place emphasis on this idea of choice. And I don't want to discount choice and free will because it is important. But to those who say, oh, well, how can we ever take accountability? How can we ever take responsibility if determinism is a thing? Well, I'll say something like this. Just because the book is written doesn't change the fact you don't know how it ends. Essentially, perhaps your story involves overcoming a great tragedy, overcoming from a small obstacle in the road. And essentially that's what I argue for determinism, because the two can't really coexist. If everything is predetermined, or if determinism exists at all, free will is non-existent. And that's just it. Because free will is without influence at all. So how can they coexist?
Yeah, I do agree. And I also believe that there is, I mean, all the decisions we made today is based on the experiences that we have, like why you choose a career, why you like a specific coffee, even what you don't like some things, it comes from somewhere. So it's not you kind of like nothing just happened out of nowhere. So I do agree in it. Like, I mean, I'm not completely sure if everything is determined. That's I guess up to debate right now, but there is some level of determinations. I'm not completely sure if that means that there is no free will at all. I guess that there is some, but we're gonna get into it later, I guess.
But I
And
have a
now,
question for you. I have a question for you real quick. I'm sorry.
okay,
So, do you think things like the future exist?
what do you mean?
So, does the future right now, as we exist?
It will exist sometime. It just it never actually happened.
So, here's the thing. Like, it could be said that we can be similar to kind of how we are, like, maybe not robots, but in a sense, kind of have a certain formula in our head or have a certain capability in our head that
Mhm.
reacts and is motivated by certain things. So the difference between me today and me tomorrow is that I just haven't experienced tomorrow. But yet my reaction to tomorrow is essentially influenced by the totality of who I am today. So in that sense, although I haven't made the choices, how I would react to those choices is already predetermined because of who I am today.
Yeah,
Do you get what
but
I'm
there are
saying?
other. I understand
So
what
are
you're
those choices, so do you really have free will in the sense that the only difference between what you will do the next day and today is that you just haven't been faced with those obstacles themselves?
but that's the point. Like I do agree with you. I just don't. I do agree with you. Don't get me wrong. But if you're also able to kind of like change some of your aspects, I mean, maybe that was also predetermined. But like as you said, like what you're gonna make tomorrow is based on the totality of you what you are right now, but some added that still hasn't happened yet. So let's say that you're kind of like in a bad mood and like all that plays along with what you're gonna be doing, but like there's like you still have some like decision in it, even though you're being highly influenced by um, external elements.
Yeah. But
So
the
like I
the
think like yes, I do believe that a lot of things are already determined because if the physical world is very deterministic and we're form of it, like we are deterministic to some level. I'm just not completely sure if it is like completely hard deterministic, but that's something that's still exploring. I cannot just say
yeah,
completely
I
like,
understand.
out of the free will.
Mhm.
Yes, but now I will yield the floor to Rabiro.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm a big believer in like determining your outcomes in life. So you work hard, you get somewhere. If you choose to go to law school and you work hard, you become a lawyer. You know, if you choose to go to med school and you work hard, you become a doctor. That's you. You kind of decide to do that. But there are just some things that happen that really make you wonder how strong the hand of fate is and what that really is. And I read a book by Michael Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled, and he is a self-proclaimed agnostic, and he talks about some of his clients. He's I think a psychologist or a psychiatrist, one of the two, but he talks about his clients who have experiences. As an example, they are driving down the road and they have a strong sense to slow down for no good reason, and literally within a minute there's a big crash with a car that was going at normal speed, or they have a sense to go another route for no good reason, and again something really bad happens. And so you now begin to ask yourself, was the accident determined to happen, or was the determination for them to stay safe? Like, which one is it? So he's just talking about stuff like that that happens that you actually cannot quite put your finger on. Like Orlando was saying, you can't really say X plus Y is equal to Z. There's something in there that you cannot put your finger on. So, I mean, I do believe you choose your own outcomes, but again, there's things around us that we cannot ignore that would prove that there is something else controlling. There's the third hand, so to speak. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, in the example that Orlando mentioned, it doesn't necessarily have to be like you're gonna be alcoholic. It could be that maybe you're not gonna touch alcohol at all because of the exact same experience. I guess it's just one of the possible examples. But
Right.
yeah, I do believe that that's true, and I'm also kind of thinking like I think you kind of mentioned it. Maybe I'm understanding wrongly. If I do, please correct me. Um, that you were trying to mention that let's say that you have an accident with your car. So was it determined the accident to happen, or it was your like your build up that was making it likely that that would happen eventually? I'm not completely sure because there is some difference.
Okay, so the example that Michael Scott Peck gives in his book is how some people speak of having a sense to slow down or take another route
Hmm.
on the road, and there's no good reason to do that. There was no obstacle they could see ahead, or there was no reason to take that other route, but they just had a strong sense to do that. And because they did that and listened to that sense, they didn't get into this big accident. So, I mean, that was my question, that, stuff like that makes you wonder, really, is there not a third hand in everything? Sometimes we see it more clearly than other times. Sometimes it's not as apparent, but, things like that do make you wonder about, the third hand, so to speak.
Yeah, I like
Mhm.
that approach. I like it very much. I do know that Orlando is next, but I do want to address a question here. I think it was meant to you, Orlando. I'm not completely sure because she brought it. when you were speaking. As you said, I would like to know about how the speaker is using consequences.
So, am I answering the question?
I'm supposed because
Yeah.
I think she's right for
So,
you. I'm
so
not
when
completely sure.
Einstein kind of believed, yes, like a criminal. This is a different example, but it answers the question. So a criminal, in a sense, was kind of predetermined to be a criminal, but you're still going to put him in jail. So essentially, determinism, when you're arguing for determinism, is not that you're arguing that we should just act in accordance to whichever way we decide to because we have no influence. No, it's just kind of this objective way to look at life that a lot of who we are, in a sense, is already kind of determined. And so the best way I can put it is an illustration like this. I kind of see life as a maze. There's a lot of different paths you can go down. There's a lot of different ways you can look at it. And essentially, free will is kind of like walking through that maze and making that choice. Now, you still have to walk. You still have to make the choice. That's something you have to do. That is what I see as sort of this free will, or rather this illusion of free will. But how you choose and where you walk, that in a sense is kind of predetermined because of the kind of landscape of your mind. The more you look into psychology, you see that a lot of your preferences that you believe to be free will, to be your own choice, kind of come down to genetics, reinforcements of the environment, social constructions, and so on and so forth. So many things that in it of themselves are predetermined. I could make the argument to say that my personal identity that gives me free will, that makes every single choice different from predeterminism, can be boiled down to genetics and was already predetermined. And then what would you guys say?
Well, I would say that it's easier to prove that things are determined, that we have actually free will. That's what I'm going to say for the moment. But Mancy's next. I know we have a lot of people who want to like interact, so that's why I'm trying not to focus too much in just one part. But yes, Mancy's next.
I'm all set. I want to hear from the queue.
Oh, so you're giving up your spot for speaking? Okay, so if that's the case, then Megan is next. Megan Borden. I cannot hear you. Maybe you're muted. Megan. All right. In the meantime, I will address some of the questions. So why Jennifer is asking why she keep CrossFit and eat ton of snacks? I'm not completely sure. I don't have enough information for that, but it could be something. I don't know. Sorry, I'm not determined to know the answer to it. I would love to, maybe in the future.
I'll
Yes.
respond. As
Okay.
somebody who often does the same. I'll say this. Listen, there are some aspects of our life that are determined that you can't deny. I mean, okay, I'll say something kind of simple. There are plenty of studies out there that say your taste buds are to a large extent determined by what it is that your maternal parents ate while she was pregnant for you. So whatever nutrients and literally like whatever flavors she was taking in somehow impacts what you will find to be delicious. And then these factors are reinforced when you're being raised and fed by the same person who is cooking meals that she likes and who was eating the same meals during the time that she was pregnant for you. So something as simple as like what you find to be tasty and not tasty, on some level, it's determined. And I say on some level because on a higher level, and this gets that to what somebody else was saying, you're able to cultivate new tastes, literally. You can choose to expose yourself to things specifically because you don't like them. And as a result, you're able to change your palate in such a way where it was determined that you are always going to like these certain flavors, but now you've taken it upon yourself to cultivate an appreciation for other flavors and literally change the way you feel about certain cuisine, the way that you, I don't know, evaluate certain cuisine in terms of tastiness, like a food critic or something. So that's one example of determinism that I think kind of gives way to a sort of, we might say limited freedom. But the point being is this, that freedom doesn't get to manifest unless there are already conditions, predetermined conditions that allow or the possibility of you to depart from, again, where you're coming from your origin, in such a way where you develop your own sense of self that includes the past self that was also, to a large extent, determined by, again, those who reared you, those who reared. So having said all that, I think that's kind of a useful example. Something as simple as just like what you find to be tasty. Appreciate that, Marcus. Flattery will get you everywhere. Tell that to all my current students. So keeping that in mind, I like Jennifer's example when she says, well, how come I'm choosing to, indulge rather than go out and do what maybe one time she thought was right in terms of her own physical health. Well, it could be the case that maybe she was raised in such a way to appreciate, and again, I'm speaking for you, Jennifer. I have no idea what the reality is, but it seems like, well, you could be conditioned, you could train yourself to say, I need to prioritize health. Maybe because you were raised by a bunch of people who are into health, or maybe you were raised by people who weren't too healthy, and you learned from that. Either way, those conditions, that context influences. All right, Orlando's laughing at me, which means I'm talking too long. I'm going to let it go.
Look what she said. Look what she said. She said, "Oh, my family is not healthy." Well, then you can kind of spin that around and then say, "Well, maybe because your family wasn't healthy, that's why you're not going to the CrossFit."
Yeah, you can spin that up. I haven't read
but
that comment yet because I try to keep things organized. But yeah, that's a good observation. And there is another one here for Susan Carrillo, she says like, if everything is determined, so why do a students deserve the grades that they get from the classes? I mean, if they were already determined to get those grades, like that's her observation.
I think there's an issue with determinism like that. We essentially, from determinism, we are implicating that it essentially is just that way and therefore discounts choice. I don't think that's the case. I think that it's just overarching, and it's like essentially our choices are here, and determinism is just this. It's just over encapsulating us. We are not aware of it. Essentially, we reside here, and I think that's the mix up here. And also, like, I mean, I think in general, there's good implications that can come from this, because often you have people who are in poverty, and then other people will say, well, why should we help them? They need to help themselves. And that's a case where free will is actually not necessarily a good thing, because they're discounted the fact that they were placed into those situations and their situation was predetermined. And in that instance, determinism can actually be seen as a good thing to kind of inspire to help others who were predetermined to be in those positions. So it's not always this negative connotation that we kind of always give it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, let me 1 second to catch up with the text. Intuition can be a reason cause of taking the other route. That's Susan Carrillo's apportation. Since as she's saying that was for the person, yeah. Okay, she was trying to address somebody's opinion, but I do address that determinism is not necessarily something that is bad. It's also something that just kind of say that you are more likely to do something based on your past experiences, and it can be also, and to some extent, positive in society-wise. And now we have Daniel, who is trying to be also participating here. Thank you for coming.
Well, first of all, hi everyone. I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to show my opinion, or what I think is happening, or at least my opinion. So for me, we all have like that free will, or like the free path, but I know that there are things that are factors that are determined by our genes, by our psychology, by our where we live, our by every aspect that races could be determined. But probably the most important aspect, and I think that Orlando told, is that the depends that our ambient, I don't know if you say that, our
The
like,
environment.
yes, the environment, that
Gotcha.
thank you. The environment, because if we could say that the example from CrossFit. So I know that her family doesn't do sports, so I'm not gonna do it. But the other example is mine. So my family doesn't do sports, but because my family doesn't do sports, I want to do sports. So I think that for that things we have free will in doing whatever we want, but we are influenced by the environment. I also love everything about psychology, how the brain works, and what I learned is that the brain tries to mirror what it sees. So if someone Joe, if someone's starts, how do you say that when you Jones?
Joining.
Joning, when someone joins, you're gonna try to mirror it. So when I think that the brains try to copy what other people are doing, so that's what I think. In some cases, we could see like we all have like a future plan, but what I can see is that we just copy. Or yeah, I mean it's a little
Okay.
confusing, but I hope
No, it's
you
okay,
got.
but
No,
that's the whole
looks
point that
good.
Orlando is trying to bring. Like, if our choices are based on our environment, then how can we really say we have free will if we're always exposed to this environment that is affecting our choices? So,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
that
So well, that is complicated. Yeah, because I understand the dilemma, but it could be applied to that. Like in a way, yeah. I
don't
mean,
don't worry,
explain it.
keep
Yeah.
trying. That's exactly why we're here to explore ideas.
In a
But
way,
yeah.
you
Mhm.
you are like creating your own decisions because you don't want to be influenced. That
Okay,
Mm.
but what if you were determined to challenge those views, so you don't want to be like, what if your past experiences made you want to challenge the way you are right now, so you change, but you were really predetermined to change because of your experience before?
well, that's the
See, but this is the thing, like, even the things that we eat, because I think recently there are some like molecules or some things that we have in our body that is kind of like biting you and trying to like really making you more likely to have some type of food in particular. So even our even what we're trying to eat is not completely like free will. We have actually like molecules that are pushing you toward having a specific food, and that's already kind of been proven. So that's why we're trying to see like, okay, interesting. Do we actually have some free will? Because free will cannot just go out of nowhere.
yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, it's hard to like completely say that we do not have free will, but it's harder to prove it than the determinism. And I think Orlando is next. But in the meantime,
No, I'm
Borgi
not. I'm
is
not.
okay. Okay. All right. So Megan is trying to fix her mic. But if anything, you can always just text your answer and I will read it for you. Don't mind. So Marcus is kind of doing something that we all agree it shouldn't be done. That is kind of like playing against making Mansi more uh, bragging more than he should. So I'm going to skip that text. I'm going
What?
to.
But
Yeah.
can I say something to what Daniel said? I'm glad you brought up psychology because I think ultimately a lot of things that we think are our own choice, we don't realize that it's a mechanization of our brain, that a lot of these, like you said, mirroring, imitation, sort of things like that, we don't know that it's happening, but essentially it just is. And I think that's so true, and that's awesome that you brought it up. So
Also,
I think
I
soon.
I like marketing. The thing that I want to study at the end is neuromarketing. Just to have an idea, when you, well, before the pandemic, when you go to the cinema, the first things that you just smells all the popcorns, or when you go to Disney, you just smell different foods that motivates you buy things. So that's neuromarketing is like using your senses to influence you to take decisions. So that's
Hmm.
another way we could apply psychology and science to our free will. Could be.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. Okay. So yeah, Jennifer expand a little bit more on her experience with CrossFit. I'm not sure if I should read it, but yeah, she explained why she's doing CrossFit. Very deterministic. Okay. So now we have Marcus. He gotta go. Okay. And now, okay. So Susan, yeah, that's pretty much what is the text is saying. Now we have Susan Carrillo, who is gonna show us a little bit more of like she's gonna take us to school. But you're
I'm
next.
scared, guys. I'm
Yeah, I'm a
scared.
little bit scared. We're screwed again,
You
like last
should.
week. Go ahead, Susan. Unless she's not here anymore. I'm not completely
Oh
sure.
no. She's like, I got tired of waiting.
Yeah, she got tagged away. Should I call her back? I'm not completely sure.
I think she got scared.
There you go. That's right. She know better.
I
She
don't like
know
that
better.
explanation.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call
She's,
her. I'm gonna call her. Watch.
yeah, call her.
Wait,
Call her.
No,
I'm calling her right
her time is determined. Maybe she has another meeting. Okay, listen, let me throw something out there as long as I'm talking here. It's important to keep in mind that freedom requires freedom of choice. So you can't just be free in a vacuum. You can't just be free in the abstract only. Freedom is freedom of action. But in order to have freedom of choice, there already is you're required certain conditions, certain environmental conditions that allow for choices to emerge in the first place. So your freedom, as it begins to make itself apparent to you, very much depends upon priorly determined sets of circumstances that allows your freedom to realize itself. Which is to say that okay, for example, if you live in a particular community where, I mean, there's no access to things like school or athletics or something like that. Maybe you live in a district where it's kind of been forgotten about, unfortunately. Well, then you may have certain innate or hereditary talents towards academics or music or sports, whatever the case may be. But if the conditions aren't there for you to explore it and realize it, then that freedom never materializes.
now.
So your choices, how you understand your freedom, is determined by the conditions that allow you to realize you're free in the first place. Because remember, we're all born. We're not. You could say we're born free, but we're not born with the realization that we're free. We come to that realization through living, and by making choices in our life, choosing between options that are already determined by society and culture before we ever were born. I've been Jeff Manzi. Thank you very much.
Okay, awesome.
That
Susan is
not
back.
the voice. Yeah, not the voice of philosophy. Just so you wonder, not the
Yeah.
voice of
She
philosophy.
just
But-
got back. Susan
I was-
just got back.
I was
The voice of
stalling for-
philosophy has come back.
Susan is back. Let us take her to
Hello.
school. So just in silence. Hello, Susan.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My couldn't find my phone, and I was getting a FaceTime call, and I have this thing where I can get my FaceTime calls on my laptop, and I was scared that you guys could hear it. Could you hear it? No, right?
No.
No, but I mean, we were determined to hear your conversation, so don't worry about it.
So I just shut down Teams. I was in panic mode. I mean, I never know what my husband's gonna say, and so he can be scandalous. And so I was just like, okay, exit now. Okay, but I've learned my lesson. I will have my phone near me. But if I may, can I chime in on something since I'm talking already anyway?
It was your
Mhm.
turn. So yes.
Okay. So I was just interested in, I had asked the speaker that I was speaking to with my question about the usage or the use of the word consequence or consequences. It was a person that did not show their face. I don't know if they called in or what, but I have noticed that sometimes people define free will as they think that they are manifesting free will when they do something where there are no consequences. And when I speak to them more in depth, the way that they're using consequences is not in the core metaphysical sense of causality. It's up a level. They're talking about there's no negative consequences, moral consequences, political consequences, social consequences. And so, I'll often point out to them, that there are consequences. So I'll ask them like, well, what was the action that you think is free? And then I'll say, well, isn't that a consequence? And they'll say, yes. And I'll say, so free will isn't a lack of consequences, period. So they don't qualify what they mean by consequences, but even then, I don't think free will means that there's no moral, political, or social consequences. So when I was listening to that person speak, I felt like he was talking about consequences in a social, moral, political sense, but I'm not totally sure. That
I think
was
she's
my
talking about. Yeah, she met Marcus, I think.
okay.
Oh yeah, probably Marcus, but he's no longer with us, as I said.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Uh,
I
all
mean,
right.
he's alive. He's just not here.
school
Yeah,
He's still
decided the
with.
session today.
He's still
We'll
with
send him the
us.
clip. We'll send him the
Yeah,
clip. We'll be like, hey, pay
we sent
attention, take
him your
notes.
regards. Yeah, we say like you take him to school again. We're gonna say that emphatically. Okay, so I'm gonna read out now. Raviro text is saying, "I think a correct view of determinism protects us from taking all the credit for our station in life, and will allow us to give grace to those in more unfortunate circumstances. A question that could come from this is where does fate start and stops? Chicken and egg situation, but I guess what we're saying is the element of choice is always there, even as we acknowledging this overarching element of determinism."
That's,
Okay.
I agree.
Yes. And now we have Jennifer. She's saying, "My family are all about Cowboys fans, and I absolutely choose the Saints. They also all drink Budweiser, and I'm into craft beer. But it turns out a cousin I don't know well, Jensen Ackles, who everyone knows as Dean on Supernatural, is also a Saints fan and now owns a craft brewery in Dripping Springs. I'm pretty sure he may be the only person I am actually related to, and I've never met him in person."
What in the world?
Interesting. Very interesting view.
That's cool. I like
Yeah,
Supernatural.
yeah. Well, I think she's questioning. I'm not familiar with the actor of the show, but I think she's saying, yeah. I mean, getting back to genetic determinism on some level. I think she's suggesting, hey, maybe I'm more like this that I know I'm related to, like in terms of genes, and that's why we're similar, even though we've never met. You know, there's a documentary about. God, I can't think of the name of it, but it was a botched attempt at following twins around, but separating the twins and then seeing if the twins later on in life had similar personality traits or dispositions, things along these lines. It was an actual experiment that took place that didn't get completed. It's a whole thing. Watch the documentary. I think it's on Amazon Prime, maybe. But that's kind of the idea here is that I guess say the nature versus nurture. I think there's far more to it than that. But this idea of, well, what is the predominant influence that determines how you use your inherited freedom? You know, is it circumstantial conditions, or is it something more again, even pre-born or genetic based? Because everybody seems to be under the, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but literally every suggestion seems to believe in such a thing as freedom, that it exists on some level. Orlando's trying very hard to sort of limit it, which I appreciate. But I mean, does anybody subscribe to a full-on deterministic understanding of things? Because again, Orlando, you talked about the laws of motion and how we're kind of mechanical animals in that regard. But really, like all of our freedom is
So
more or less interesting.
so here's my thing. I think it was Descartes that said that the only thing we know to be true is really our concept of mind, because there's no other way that could have been. Is that accurate? That there's no other version of ourselves that could have existed.
That's his opinion.
I mean,
So essentially, I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but I kind of see it in that sense that is there any other consciousness of us that could exist? I don't think so, because it wouldn't be us anymore. And so
I agree.
since that is the case, the way I see it is like in the laws of motion once again, or just the motion causality, you have something in rest, and then a force is pushed upon it, and then it goes on, so on and so forth. In physics, we can essentially measure the projectile, and like we can approximate where it will land to the very t, to the very number. So all I'm saying is that to some extent we could, if we understood all of the variables, all of the different factors that go into genetics, that go into reinforcements of behaviorism and psychology, in theory, couldn't we also predict a human? That's a stretch. I think that's the thing about determinism, is that could we really ever measure the capacity of someone? And what movie is this? Is it Total Recall? I've never been watching the movie, but essentially where they had like
Yeah, I think
a
so. It's the
is
one who
it
do
where
Mission Impossible, right?
no, I think it was like they predicted crimes before they happened,
Well,
if I'm not
exactly. That's what
mistaken.
I'm
Is
trying
that
to
right?
say. It's the one who did is with Tom Cruise.
So
Uh,
so is that ever a possibility? Could we ever get to the point where we make machines that are so complex and understanding of the human variations that we could predict events before they even happen? You
I
know,
mean
I
that,
think that if that ever comes to fruition, determinism is completely true.
So you mean
Obviously,
like
that's sci-fi.
but that,
forecasting?
that that is actually also the same principle of devs, the series that Marcus is always talking about. That is that they're able to kind of like predetermine the future just by having they have like this big machine, and like let's say that you roll a pencil, and based on the movement of the pencil, like you start like tracking down what motivates you to through the pencil, and you start having like a picture of the whole path and what is going to happen in the future. So it's kind of like a very deterministic way, and like they start to explore more that side of determinism. So yeah, it's a very interesting topic.
I think a good argument for free will. It's this kind. I don't know if it really makes sense because it doesn't make sense to me. But essentially, the more that we understand determinism, the closer that we are to free will. Rather, the more that we understand our constraints, the closer we are to freedom. Now, the question is, how much of our determinism can we actually understand? I think with the exploration of science such as psychology, that's exactly what we're trying to do. Because when you think about psychology, people just think, oh, my mental health, I just want to go because I'm depressed. That's important, so do that, please. But also, we're kind of trying to understand our capacity, who we are as people, and what makes us exactly the way it does. And so, in that sense, if we are able to kind of master that, then I don't see why free will couldn't exist. If we can essentially see the path that we're leading towards with our current state, then I guess it is possible to change it.
I mean, yes, or maybe you were determined to change it. I'm just teasing you,
Hey
but
man,
I
I'm
do.
just I'm trying to change my opinion.
Yeah, I know you were doing the devil's advocate, and now you're just trying to be the saint. But it's fine. It's all right. I'm just kind of like bringing it back because of fun. But I'm gonna read Raviro. I do think everything is coming from somewhere. I do subscribe to a full-on deterministic view, varying degrees of it, though would it is overarching? Yeah, something like that. And Susan is saying, off topic, I would love a chat on identity or persons in the future. So she's already pretty much setting the next theme, huh? There you go. We're not even in that phase of voting, and she's already on it, which is great. It's great. I mean, yeah, we can definitely talk about it. All right. So yes, I actually like that idea that you're mentioning, and I do believe that our inherent understanding of ourselves could help us kind of like skew our decisions. And I mean, I do feel like it is pretty much what we do today. Like understanding our ideas are help us kind of like have a better assessment of what our decisions should be. But I still feel like in some extent
I,
it's
th- I
gonna be.
think I think it's interconnected because we have a sense of self, and we would like to think that, and we have values, and we make choices, and part of our identity presupposes that we choose our values, or that we're acting according to our values. But are you truly free if you haven't stopped to think about the values that you're using to make the choices? Are we free to choose our values? If even the values that we hold as persons, and we think that our values constitute us as persons, are themselves caused by our environment and whatever other factors are in the swirl, then it seems like even the values we use to make a choice are themselves determined. So even if we say at least having a choice can maybe give us a sense of freedom, a choice in what sense? If you're talking about a choice that entails the use of values, then the choice itself doesn't seem genuine or real because the values are themselves determined. And so I think it's interesting to think about that. I would like to think that I'm expressing myself, free expression in a variety of ways, but I think that they're interconnected, identity and freedom. And at one level, there's a whole other level in which you can talk about identity, like, am I the same self I was 10 years ago?
So,
Okay.
so Susan, is it like if somebody was born in a certain religion and then freely chooses to convert religions for the sake of love, the question might be, well, they were raised to prioritize love. That's why they're making that decision. Okay, it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. I'm gonna read now a comment from Jennifer. She said, Dr. Dispensa's serious reward is about getting through to your subconscious to reward the way you act, etc., including healing yourself. He's proven you can lengthen your telomeres. I don't know what telomeres is. I have a lot to say
No,
about that,
good.
but I won't. We don't have time, and it's a lot to type. That's so sad. Like, so you're just gonna bring up telomerase and you're not gonna tell me what it is? I mean, that's a little bit mean. That's just saying you're gonna make me actually do the research, eh?
It says we can
That's
change our
fine.
telomeres. Really? I just googled it because bothered me. I didn't know. Apparently, it's a sequence that's at the end of our chromosomes. So we can change that. That's kind of insane. That's crazy. Hmm.
Yes, that's exactly what she texts. Yes, dot. Very precise. She doesn't want to type much anymore. But thank you so much for your aportation, really. Okay, so should we start going like wrapping up to start like doing elections or like voting?
I think where everybody here is good to go. We're ready to do the next week's topic here.
Well, also
Yeah,
throwing this out there. Again, we got to assume. Still waiting to hear back from the IFS. We got to assume that next Wednesday we'll have another film. So like this, Determinism was today for the film tomorrow, Hereditary. So if we do have Wednesday's film of Write Down I Am in Arab, I think Personal Identity would be a good couple to that.
that's true.
So
That's a
can I stack
that's a
can I stack
that's a
something onto
topic.
identity? I think I want to talk about identity and our environment, because there was this interesting theory in psychology where people are saying, well, are humans really that special in the fact that it's our own special interactions with our environment that makes us so unique? Or is it the environment itself that requires and calls upon specific traits from the species? And so I kind of want to talk about how like the environment shapes our identity, or rather it calls upon our identity.
Or we can keep that idea separate and we let ideas of Carrillo obliterate yours. I mean, that's fine for me.
All right, fine.
Yeah.
That's fine too. Go ahead.
But
Do it.
No,
Orlando's
it's
making
fine. We can add it. We can add it.
Go
It's
ahead. No,
okay.
no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
if
I don't mind
the
being
environment
embarrassed.
determines your identity. You can see the
Yeah.
connection.
No, there is a connection there. I'm just teasing Orlando, honestly speaking, at this point.
No, I
So
like it.
this is what we're gonna
Let's do it.
that's what we're gonna do. Still, we can still just add Amansi's idea, so we continue the process that he always is losing, and then we choose Carrillo's idea. What about that?
Sounds good.
I'm backing Susan's idea. That's
All right. What's your idea, Menzi? What's your idea?
What's your
that was
idea,
my
man?
idea. Personal identity.
That was
Okay.
not your
So,
idea. Don't be
hey guys,
copycat. That was Susan's idea. Come on.
we'll put
Please don't
identity. No, we'll put identity twice. Just vote for number one because that'll be Susan's.
because second is
All right.
You're free to cast your own vote. It's not determined. I guess it is determined. So we're doing personal identity.
All right. So what's another topic? Just throw on there.
We've had some previous topics. Actually, we've actually done a good job of getting to many of the topics that were kind of thrown out earlier in the semester. So we did dreams recently. That was one that kept coming up. We did obviously we did the environment last time, sustainability.
yeah.
But I like applying it to how it forms your identity or your character, or what have you, or your traits. Does anybody else have anything else that they'd want to throw out? Even if we don't necessarily vote on it, it could be a future topic. We still got another 5 meetings this semester. We'll probably do with her.
I'm putting both choices in the chat so far.
Oh.
So
I already made the numbers.
Just pick whatever. Just pick
I
whatever.
made the numbers too. Wait, look, hold on, guys, don't vote yet. Look, hold on. Mine's is in there too. Look.
Yeah, put it more fancy,
All right,
please.
it's those three. It's those three right there. Go ahead, everybody. If you guys would like the topic to be picked, put the number in the chat. The number in the chat that you would like to do next week.
Susan,
Wait,
have
what
you ever encountered such disrespect from your students?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I think you're giving me a good example of how I should do it if I want disrespect. There you go.
Mhm.
Oh.
That's right.
Hey, y'all started this game.
Hmm.
Okay,
Susan got it.
but I will throw out a few ideas. And I don't know the history of your conversation or your dialogue, and maybe you already covered this in one of your interdisciplinary things. But of course, with the killing of George Floyd and the aftermath, there's many topics, including of course, moral concerns. And so you could talk about civil protest, and is there an ethics of civil protest? Can you do things that are considered wrong or morally incorrect in civil protest? So think about Deep Ellum and people looting businesses. So that would definitely be, I think, an interesting one. And I haven't heard of you guys or heard any suggestions. Again, I'm not part of the dialogue that has anything to do with knowledge. So something in epistemology. Can we know anything about the damn coronavirus? Can we know? How do we know anything? Is it possible? So just some ideas off the top of my head.
Yeah, we did epistemology already, but we could circle back around and make it more specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did do the civil liberties.
Okay, cool.
We did that one. It was good.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Okay, so are we voting? Are we voting right now? I
have-
don't understand.
Yes, we have for the moment we have 3 threes, the 2 ones. 0-2 0-2 is losing heavily. So yeah,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
4 threes. But I don't understand. The self is still like identity. Like I don't understand.
Yeah, but I use that word to just be different,
But that's
No,
kind of
Minzy.
cheating. That's kind of cheating.
No, it's not because look, all the ones that go to 2 are gonna go to 1, so it's like 1 versus 2 versus 3.
No,
You get what I'm saying?
it's cheating. You're taking Susan's idea to
What?
like bluster
What?
yourself. So then we say you won when you actually Susan won. That's just
What?
like
How about
that's
this? If my win wins, we all win.
I said Nancy.
Yeah,
Except
so the
Manzi,
advisor
that's right. Except Manzi.
advisor's vote counts for 7. I don't know if people realize that. So I guess we're going with Phil. Great.
Okay, you know what? It's
Okay.
okay. 2 and 3 win. Oh, no, wait. 1 and 3 wins, 2 loses.
1 and 3
That's-
wins. Exactly. That's it. So we're doing identity and environment for next week.
And again, that's an allusion to the following day's second installment in the film series, which again, pending final confirmation from the International Film Series co-directors, will be Write Down I Am an Arab. So dealing with identity. Sounds good to me. All right, folks. Well, thanks for coming. Once again, to recap the announcements from the top, tomorrow we have our first installment in the film series. Again, it's going to be Hereditary. It's going to further explore today's topic of determinism in the context of a Halloween frightening movie. Again, it's rated R for a few graphic violent scenes. So if that's not your thing, maybe avoid that one. But the following Wednesday, November 4th, we'll have the second installment in the film series. It's a collaboration with the International Film Series. It's the documentary Write Down I Am an Arab. So be on the lookout for our social media, for those announcements. Again, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And then, of course, 1 month from today is the Dallas College Philosophy Undergraduate Student Conference. 1 month from today, I'm excited about it. It's going to be open to all 7 campuses in the college, as well as some surrounding four-year universities that we're friendly with. So yeah, looking forward to that. So just a reminder, I said these at the beginning, I'm saying them at the end. And then I guess next week's topic will be personal identity as defined by Professor Manzi. All right.
Okay, Manzi.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh, Susan, you don't have to lose your intensity. We appreciate it. We need that.
We need that, yeah. Thanks, Sissy. No.
Okay. Well, the
Just
show.
tomorrow we start at 4 and the movie actually start rolling at 4:30.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming, everybody.
This
I'm
was a
gonna-
fun one.
I'm gonna go
Oh,
down the list. Say
wow.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah, it's,
Orlando.
yeah, it seems like we're
Thank you,
gonna
Luisa.
regret.
Thank you,
It seems
everyone.
like we're gonna regret our choice now. Oh my god. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you for
For
coming,
tomorrow.
Megan.
Here. Yeah.
Thank you for Jennifer. Thank you, Ferdinando. Thank you, Susan. Oh no, thank you, Daniel. Oh no, he's gone. All right, well, that's everybody. They didn't want to wait for my thank yous. They don't appreciate it.
I love how 80% of the crowd leaves as we start to decide the next topic. All right.
It is
Have a
okay.
good one, y'all. Hope to see you guys tomorrow at the film screening.
So
Bring your pop.
It's 4 We're doing 4 p.m. as a precursor, and then 4:30 to start, right?
Yes.
And then Manzi, you're coming at 4:30, right?
I'll be there at 4:30. I have a meeting. Susan and I both are in the same meeting that runs till 4:20. And then, yeah, I'll be popping in probably 4:25. And then, yeah, we'll screen 4:30 to 6:15 and then try to have a conversation. That's, you know, these conversations for the film series tend to go on for almost 2 hours, which I love. But we'll try to keep it, you know, manageable.
All right, so we'll expect you at 5:30. That's great.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there right around the end of the conversation.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
man.
Well, thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to head out early today. So
Yeah,
have a good day. Mhm.
you too.
All right. That was a fun meeting.